That was an accident. I wasn't supposed to be off the screen. That was a nice slide into the start of this, though, so... So yes, hello everybody. Welcome back to the stream. And if you saw... I doubt anyone saw it, but, I tweeted this morning that today's stream would be the first non-gaming stream since my debut stream. Which means I'm going to be doing a lot more talking again. Which is fine. I got my water, so this should be fine. This is probably the first time you're seeing the just chatting screen, because I don't think I used it in my debut stream either. I think I just went straight to... If I remember correctly, I think I just went straight to the, went straight to the PowerPoint, maybe. I have to look back at it and say, I can't remember. But, as you can see from the title, what I'm gonna do today is something that some other people have already done. But, well, not actually, no, that's not true. What I'm gonna be doing is taking all the lore videos that I've seen from certain VTubers and creating a cinematic timeline as if it was like a streaming service, and like it was like a film. Like if it was a film, putting them into like a timeline in like a streaming service kind of thing. And you'll understand what I mean in a second. I'll show you what I mean in a second. What inspired me to do this was, if any of you guys use Disney Plus and you go into the Marvel category, and I have Disney Plus open so that I can show you what I'm talking about, they have the films organized in a variety of different orders. And the main order that I'm gonna focus on will be towards the bottom of the page. And I'll show you guys that in a moment. So let me put some music on. I deleted my music stream. Let me put my music back on. My nice video game music, and turn my headphone volume down because I don't want to hear it over myself. You guys should hear it the same way. Yeah, that song I was playing at the beginning at the starting soon screen, that was coming from the Kirby and the Forgotten Land game. That's my favorite song. That's my favorite track from the game soundtrack. The Kirby music is just, it's incredible. It's I love when video game music is really unique, and a lot of Nintendo games have that cool uniqueness in their soundtrack. That's why I love the Splatoon soundtrack so much too. You know, I love when soundtracks are just very unique. I didn't forgot to mute my phone. But yeah, so this song is from Donkey Kong, which is another game series that has very unique sounding tracks. Alright, so let me go ahead and show you what I meant by how Disney Plus organizes their... films. Let me go into my... here? Alright. And let me... hang on. So, if you take a look at... should I move myself over? Is that any easier? If you take a look at... I can't look to my right because then it'll look stupid. If you take a look at the way they have their page set up, like I said, on the Disney Plus app and website in the Marvel category, I'm talking away from my mic. You know what? I'm gonna move myself back over because I have to talk towards my mic. See if I could try to get myself out of the way of the page. I'll try to get it so that you guys can see. I am transparent, so you can see through me. But still want to make sure you guys can see everything. If you take a look at how they have their films set up, this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe film. All the films involved in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because they don't have films outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And when I say Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, that is where you see Phase 1. It's every movie that has come out for Marvel, starting from the Iron Man movie that came out in 2008. So, where they have Cinematic Universe Phase 1, 2, 3, this is the order of Marvel Cinematic Universe films by release date. This is release date order. So, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger. I'm not gonna look at the one-shot things, and let me make sure that my cursor is actually visible. I want you guys to see my cursor, because I forgot that in my debut stream you couldn't even see my cursor, so wherever I was pointing, you didn't even see it. I'm not gonna look at the one-shot shows right now. I'm just gonna focus on the films. So, a funny thing happened on the way to Thor's Hammer. I'm not gonna talk about Item 47. Anything that says one-shot on it, I'm not gonna talk about. So, again, it was Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, the first Avengers film. Not literally the first Avengers film, because I'm sure there's been stuff from the old days, but the first Avengers film involving characters within the universe starting in 2008. So, Avengers 1, and then you come back up here, Phase 2, Iron Man 3, Thor Dark World, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, and then you got Phase 3. Marvel, really? Captain America Civil War. This may as well have been an Avengers film. This may as well have been called Avengers Civil War, because it involved just about all of them who were around at the time. After Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, and Avengers Endgame. And then you got Phase 4, WandaVision, which is a show, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is also a show, Loki, which is also a show, Black Widow, What If is a show, that's not involved in this, Shang-Chi, The Eternals, Moon Knight, which is a show, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Miss Marvel, which is a show, Thor Love and Thunder, and I think that's it. She-Hulk and Werewolf by Night are both shows. But what I just read to you was, again, this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe order by release date. Now, what I'm going to show you guys, if you haven't seen it, is their order of Marvel Cinematic Universe films by timeline order. Because that is an entirely different order. The Marvel Cinematic Universe films in order of timeline, meaning by order of story. Captain America the First Avenger would be the first film part of that in the timeline. Captain America the First Avenger is the first film in that timeline. I'm checking to see what music is playing right now. So, yes, that Captain America the First Avenger, that's the first movie in the timeline. If you watch it, you'll understand. The second movie in the timeline is Captain Marvel. Now, Captain Marvel's story, I didn't even watch the full Captain Marvel film because I wasn't too big of a fan of it. I'm not sure why this fits as the second film in the timeline, and maybe it's set prior to the events of... Well, obviously it's set prior to the events of the movies that precede it. That could be the only thing. But the story of Captain Marvel is not related to Captain America. I don't believe that they're related. The third movie in the timeline is Iron Man 1. Which means this movie is set after the events of Captain America. Now, if you watch Captain America, the first Avenger, and then you watch Iron Man, it will make sense why Iron Man comes way after. Because, first of all, Howard Stark is a character in the Captain America, the first Avenger film. Howard Stark is Tony Stark's father. By the first Iron Man film in 2008, Howard Stark is long dead. So, now you see why it makes sense. Let's keep going. Iron Man 2, and then Thor, the first Thor movie, comes after the events of the second Iron Man film. I think the second Iron Man film, if I remember correctly, that is when you first run into the Black Widow. That's when you meet her for the first time. Her character, the cinematic universe Black Widow, that's when you meet Scarlett Johansson for the first time. And, what's the other guy's name? Nice Persona music. What's the War Machine? I think this is when Don Cheadle's character, I think this is the second movie, I believe, is when you see him. I'm gonna rewatch these films at some point in the future again, just to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. But yeah, after Iron Man 2, it's the first Thor movie. Again, none of these stories, a majority of the films in here, the stories do not 100% intertwine. It's just because the events of this story, take place after the events of the movie that preceded it. So, Thor coming after Iron Man 1 and 2, there's no other explanation as to why that is in my head, except that the events of it take place afterwards. That's the only explanation. Keep going. Then it's the first Avengers movie. And as you can see in the picture, the first Avengers movie involves Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, Hawkeye, Thor, Captain America, Black Widow, and then there's Nick Fury. Nick Fury, I believe you also met in Iron Man 2. Yeah, you meet Nick Fury in Iron Man 2 as well. So, these two are not new. Black Widow and Nick Fury, they're not new in the Avengers film. They're introduced in Iron Man 2. The main antagonist of the first Avengers movie is Loki, which is how Thor gets wrapped up with, which is why Thor, you can argue, is the main protagonist of this film, because his brother Loki is the main antagonist of this film, and he gets all these other guys wrapped up because of but Loki, by the way, gets all these guys wrapped up in his scheme. So they all end up meeting up and needing to take care of Loki. Thor: The Dark World comes next. I did not watch this movie. I just know that the ratings for it sucked. But the events of Thor: The Dark World take place after this first Avengers film. After that is Iron Man 3. Now, Iron Man 3, it does make perfect sense because this story does, in a way, intertwine with the end result of the first Avengers film. If you're wondering why I haven't started talking about VTubers yet, by the way, it's because I'm trying to make this stream a little bit longer. It seems like I could do this stream within minutes, but I want it to be a little bit longer because I want it to be more interesting. So, I have another PowerPoint, by the way, because that's how I'm gonna make this timeline for VTubers. But anyway, Iron Man 3, if you, I'm sure you guys, again, I'm sure plenty of you have seen this and know this already. Iron Man 3, the end result of the first Avengers film, loops with Iron Man 3's story. It plays a role in Iron Man 3's story because in the first Avengers film, spoiler alert, Tony Stark ends up being the hero. He, like, goes all the way into space, destroys something, and then falls all the way, literally falls from space all the way down back into Earth and crash lands. This crazy crash landing gives him PTSD. And so in the third movie, you consistently see Tony Stark suffer panic attacks because he is traumatized from that fall that took place in the first Avengers film. So that is intertwined with the Iron Man 3 film. So that's why these two make perfect sense. Captain America the Winter Soldier is the next film. I did not see that one either, but I know that obviously that's when the Winter Soldier is first introduced. And that plays a role in the Civil War story. Because these two obviously become very close. And I think that in this the Winter Soldier, I think, if you watch the first Captain America film, I think that the Winter Soldier is the guy who was serving with him during, I think it was World War II. He thought he died because he fell off a train, and I think he became the Winter Soldier. I think, and that's why these two are so close. I believe that's what it is. The next one in the timeline is Guardians of the Galaxy. This story, nothing to do with the movies that preceded it, nothing to do. It's just that the events of the Guardians of the Galaxy movie take place after these. These stories, Guardians of the Galaxy movie, take place after these. These stories are not intertwined, they have nothing to do with Iron Man, Captain America, or any of those guys. But you'll see how they get intertwined in a second. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was the second film in the timeline. None of the Guardians of the Galaxy films relate to the movies that preceded it at all. It's just the Avengers films where everything starts to make sense, so... And obviously all the Groot shorts, we're not going to worry about. Obviously that all comes after the events of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 because Groot gets blown up and regenerates as a little small guy. Avengers Age of Ultron is the next movie in the story, and I think, if I remember correctly, I don't remember. I don't think the Guardians of the Galaxy are in this movie. I don't believe that they're in this movie. I could watch it again to make sure, but I don't believe you see them in an Avengers movie until Civil War. Not Civil War. Infinity War. I think that's when you first see... Change the song. I think that's when you first see them. Not this movie. Age of Ultron kind of introduces a new villain, but kind of out of nowhere. And give me a second, because this is where I'm actually gonna look up the plot for how he even came about, because I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, so just give me a second. This is where I'm going to and then just quickly look up. A lot of this stream is gonna be me looking stuff up. So it says, in the Eastern European country of Sokovia, the Avengers, Tony Stark, Thor, Bruce Banner, Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, and Clint Barton. If you know who those are, you know who they are. Raid a Hydra facility commanded by Baron Wolfgang von Strucker, who has experimented on humans using the scepter previously wielded by Loki. Okay, so again, you see how that's connected. They meet two of Strucker's test subjects, which are this is when you meet Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. which their actual names are Pietro and Wanda Maximoff. I forgot that this is when you first meet them. I remember that now. Quicksilver also dies in this film, so you don't see him too much. Spoiler alert. Sorry if you haven't seen the movies yet, it's been way too long. Okay. So, again, two test subjects were created. And they run into them, so then they apprehend Strucker while Stark retrieves Loki's scepter. Okay, so that's how that started off. Now, Stark had better discovering artificial intelligence within the scepter's gem, and secretly decide to use it to complete Stark's Ultron global defense program. The unexpectedly sentient Ultron, believing he must eradicate humanity to save Earth, eliminates Stark's AI Jarvis. Okay, yeah, this is how that's how Ultron came to be. It was a failed experiment by Tony Stark. So I just wanted to figure out where he came from, because I couldn't remember. So now I'm gonna turn my screen back on so you can see. There you go. Okay, so yeah, that's how Ultron was created. So that's the story of the second Avengers film, Age of Ultron. After that is Ant-Man. The first Ant-Man, if I'm looking at this picture correctly, yeah. The first Ant-Man, the story does not tie into any of the films that preceded, I don't believe. You will figure out how Ant-Man gets intertwined in Civil War, because that's the next movie in the timeline, is Civil War. So I'm gonna try to now to understand how he gets brought into Civil War. I'm trying to remember how did Ant-Man get involved in Civil War. Do this again and look it up. I'm reading. Okay, so Ant-Man, and the story of Ant-Man immediately I can see is related to S.H.I.E.L.D. So if you ever watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they're saying that one of their agents, Hank Pym, resigned after discovering their attempt to replicate his Ant-Man streaking technology, believing the technology would be dangerous if replicated. Okay. And they say that Darren Cross, who is a protege to Hank, was trying to perfect a shrinking suit of his own, that being of the Yellow Jacket. And he's the antagonist of the movie, the Yellow Jacket, Darren Cross. I'm reading the plot of the first Ant-Man movie, by the way. I'm sorry. I said I was gonna look at how he got involved in Civil War. Then I remembered that I need to figure out this original story. This music that's playing right now is so nostalgic. Little Big Planet was such a fun game. Anyway. Okay, so I understand the plot of the first Ant-Man film now, but now let's figure out... Let's figure out how Ant-Man got involved in the Civil War plot. So now, after reading the plot, I'm seeing that Scarlet Witch inadvertently killed Wakandan humanitarian workers because she redirected an explosion attempt by an antagonist that says Brock from Love. And so that's how the Black Panther gets involved in the story. Because this is how T'Challa's father passes away. Okay, still reading. Need to turn my brightness down, I feel like. There we go. Still not seeing how Ant-Man is in any way involved in this. Here we go. So it just says that Captain America and the Winter Soldier just recruit Hawkeye and Ant-Man for their cause. So, in Civil War, Captain America is at a crossroads with everybody else in the Avengers because he wants to protect the Winter Soldier, and other people want him dead. So unfortunately for them, though, everybody else, you know, Iron Man, literally almost everybody else is opposed to Captain America, so they try to stop them. And that's how the whole Civil War thing goes. Okay, so yeah, that makes sense now. That was Civil War. Black Widow is the next movie in the story. So, the events of Civil War precede this film. After Black Widow, what's the Black Panther? Which, again, Civil War ties into Black Panther because T'Challa's father is killed in an explosion that happened in the Civil War film. After that, it's Doctor Strange, then Thor Ragnarok, then Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is when you meet her. Now, at the end of at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, there was a cutscene. There was a cutscene at the end of this. Before, like, towards the end of the film, Scott Lang, Ant-Man, tries to go into some kind of time machine and gets stuck. And then in the end, there's a cutscene where they show basically what happens in Infinity War, the movie that precedes it, Avengers Infinity War, when Thanos literally just gets all the Power Stones, snaps his fingers, and people just disappear into thin air. They just turn to a pile of ash and disappear into thin air. That was the cutscene at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp. So there was absolutely no context for that cutscene until you saw Infinity War and saw how that happened. And then after Infinity War is Endgame. So in Endgame, you see Scott being able to exit that time machine and reunite with everybody. And it goes from there. So, the Guardians of the Galaxy characters, they don't get wrapped up with the rest of the Avengers until this film, Infinity War. Because it's here when you find out that Gamora and Nebula are Thanos' daughters. Which, that was a shock when I found that out, but I thought it was a good way for them to bring them into the story, because they had to figure out somehow how to bring them into the story. The Guardians of the Galaxy characters, they had to figure out how they could make that make sense. And so, by deciding that they were the daughters of Thanos, that definitely creates a good plot reason for them to be involved in the story. So, that was good. I forgot to mention Spider-Man, obviously, if you watch Civil War. Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is introduced in Civil War because Tony Stark recruits him for his cause, because he is against Captain America trying to protect the Winter Soldier. So he recruits Spider-Man, and he doesn't recruit the Black Panther. The Black Panther kind of stands on his own, but he is against Captain America as well. So he's kind of more so on Iron Man's side than... Like, almost nobody was on Captain America's side. There were some people fighting on his side, but it was like almost nobody. The proportion swayed much more in favor of Tony Stark and all of them on his side. Even though what really is correct is that, you know, protecting the Winter Soldier because he's actually innocent. It's just that nobody felt that way in Civil War, and again, that's why all that happened. But yeah, that's how Spider-Man got wrapped into all this. How Doctor Strange gets wrapped into all this, he's actually a very important character in all this, because he and the other guy, I forgot his name. Jesus, where is he? I must have skipped him. There he is. Yeah, Doctor Strange and the other guy, I don't remember his name. They are a major role. They have a major role in the Avengers film starting after his film. All the Avengers films after him. Because now it's like it's just turned into a matter of they are like watching they're like watching this timeline and predicting things that will happen in the future and everything like that. Like, they have these visions. And so that's why they're such a huge role, and they continue to be a role in the movies preceding Endgame. I think how everybody ended up meeting Doctor Strange is because he just randomly pulled everybody. He pulled Tony Stark and Bruce into his world so that they could I believe this is what it was. He like randomly pulls them in, and that's when they meet him, and he pretty much gives them all the information about the Power Stones and everything like that. I believe that's how it was. So yeah, after Endgame, you had all these other shows, and then Shang-Chi. Like I said, Doctor Strange. You didn't see Doctor Strange. You saw the other guy, who I can't remember his name. He was at the end of this film, and everything that he tells Shang-Chi kind of lets you know that this movie kind of starts kind of like a new timeline, because so much happened at the end of Endgame. So he kind of starts this new time. I forgot. For whatever reason, Disney Plus does not have the Spider-Man films. The Spider-Man films are in between these. They're in between some of these movies. I don't remember exactly where. I have to look it up and find out where the Spider-Man movies fall. But I know that Far From Home is obviously going to be after Endgame. Far From Home is after the events of Endgame, because Tony Stark is dead. He dies in Endgame. He ends up being the hero once again, but in what he does, he ends up dying. So, rest in peace, Tony Stark. Far From Home is after the events of this movie. No Way Home is... Let's see. I don't even think any of these have anything to do with it. No Way Home is probably just going to be the movie after that. So, Far From Home and then No Way Home. I don't know if any of these are in between it or what, but yeah. So that's the Marvel. That's the Marvel timeline. Yeah, I forgot that they don't have Disney Plus. Disney Plus needs to add those Spider-Man movies. I don't know why they don't have them in there. But now, finally, let's get into what I actually wanted to get into. Let's talk about these VTubers. Hang on. There we go. So, I'm only going to be talking about the Shoujo Nijisanji and Hololive in this video. And again, I don't own the rights to any of these pictures that I got up here. I'm not using pictures this time, other than these logos. Right off the bat, V Shoujo will be the easiest company to do this for, because they're the only company that has really thorough lore videos about almost all their talents. Nijisanji, not all of them have lore videos, and the ones that do, they're very short. So, there's not a lot of information. XLA, though their lore videos were longer, so they were a little bit longer than everybody else's. So, it won't be as difficult for them. But, yeah, and Hololive, almost nobody has a lore video. You know, Gura posted that Sharked, somebody made that Sharked lore video for her, which is great. But other than that, none of them have a lore video. So, I'm gonna start with the shoujo. And what I'm gonna try to do is, based on all of the lore videos, try to figure out how to put this in an, like, as if it was a film series. How to organize this, you know, by timeline order. You know, there's already been somebody who tried to make a, like a timeline based on the Vshoujo lore videos. Let me just number it real quick. I don't think there's that many, but let me just number it real quick. Now, I'm gonna go on YouTube. And look at the playlist that Vshoujo made for all of the lore videos. So all of the talents in Vshoujo, they had their lore videos posted on their own channel, but then Vshoujo did this thing where they made a playlist of, they took all the lore videos from their talents and tried to construct a timeline of their own. I'm assuming that all the videos in the playlist, I'm assuming they haven't put in what they believe is, or what they say, they don't believe, they know, what they say is the order. But no, I think this is, I don't know if it's by release order or if it's actually in story order from when the videos were actually made. But the first video in this playlist is Nanners the Eternal Void. That's the first video in this playlist. So, if you guys watched any of Vshoujo's lore videos, you can kind of decide for yourself if you think that the way they have this put is accurate. Because how the order that they have is Nanners the Eternal Void is the first video. The second video is Iron Mouse Heaven and Hell. The third video is Vebe the Sky Empress. Number 4 is Zentreya, Refactoring Time. Number 5 is Project Melody Racing Queen. 6 is Kason New Beginning. 7 is Iron Mouse Heavenfall. 8 Project Melody Ode to a Cyber Apocalypse. 9 Nanners Reckoning. 10 Fruit the Overworld. And 11 Haruka Karabu the Seed of Life. Now, notice there is nothing in this playlist for Silvervale, and there is nothing in this playlist for Nazuna. That is because you can't really involve them, you can't give them their own story in this timeline. Like if you're gonna make a timeline of films, they would not have their own film. If they did, it would be very difficult to make it entirely unique because you already see a lot of them in other people's stories. But I am going to agree and say that the very first, if there's supposed to be a film series, the very first film should be Nanners the Eternal Void. So I'm gonna go ahead and write that in the spot number 1. I'm gonna zoom in on this because I'm too far out. So, Nanners the Eternal Void should be the first in this series because this kind of introduces you to, you know, like it gives you an idea of it's mostly about Nanners, but just how the video played out, it makes you understand why this should be first, because it talks a lot about Neander's, how she first started out, how she was tasked with this end goal of what she calls lighting the beacon. So it makes you think that one, like, well, it doesn't make you think, like, what I'm trying to think about, how I want to say this. The way this story goes, like, it starts off with her, like, you immediately get the idea that she is some kind of, she actually has a word for it, and I need to remember the word. I have to look it up because there's an actual word for it. Why don't they give me her Twitter page? Come on. Eldritch. That's the word that she used. Her character. You guys don't see this, do you? No, you shouldn't be able to see this. What I'm looking at right now. Yeah, she's an Eldritch. Like her actual character is like an Eldritch cat, like kind of like a witch based character. Nanner's true form is that of a terrible Eldritch spirit, who was summoned to Earth more than 1,000 years ago to prevent her from conquering the world. She was sealed away in the Siberian Arctic for an age. Wow, that's a nice word. For many years, like thousands of years. Because, yeah, and I'm glad I read this, because I was struggling trying to figure out how to word it. That's exactly how that lore video, the Eternal Void, that's how the video plays out. You see her, like, her in her true form, which I guess the name is Asatoth, because that's the name that she was throwing out. So you would see her right out the bat in her true form. But, well, and she tells you what her end goal is, which is light the beacon. We don't know what light the beacon means, but we know that it's her doing that will ultimately bring about the end of the world. So we don't know what light the beacon is, but we know that it will bring about the end of the world. To prevent this, she was sealed. It says, to prevent this, she was sealed away. You don't know who sealed her away by this video. Hence why we are making this timeline. You don't know who sealed her away. Now, the next video, like I said, in this playlist is Iron Mouse Heaven and Hell. I am not sure if I am going to put this video as my second film in my timeline. I am not sure if I'm going to put this there. Let me just think about this before I speak on it. I think that the second film that I'm going to put in this timeline, the second video that I'm going to put as the second film in this timeline, is actually going to be Vei the Sky Empress. the second video that I'm going to put as the second film in my timeline is gonna be Veibai the Sky Empress, because in Veibai's lore video, the Sky Empress, you see who was responsible for sealing Nanners away. Because that is Veibai. If I've looked at that video correct, Veibai is the one who seals Nanners away. Because Nanners tells her, as she's sealing her away, she's telling her, if you're going to seal my powers, then I shall take away something of yours. And she takes Veibai's memory from her. Veibai does not remember any of this at the start of her lore video. Silverveil is heavily involved in Veibai's lore, which is why Silverveil does not get her own film in my timeline, because she is heavily involved in Veibai's film. She ultimately helps Veibai restore her memory and remember what she was put on this earth to do. There is another character who is involved in Veibai's story as an antagonist. And this person is not even in VShojo, but she's heavily involved with the talent. She's great friends with them, she's heavily involved with them. And that is Snuffy. Maybe to, I'll probably just write down their names just so I remember that they were involved in Veibai's lore. Snuffy and Silverveil are heavily involved in Veibai's lore, which is why they will not have their own film on my timeline. In Nanners the Eternal Void, you run into Iron Mouse. But there is a reason Iron Mouse will have her own film series. Not just film, it's going to be multiple films. But let me get to that in a second. Nanners also is going to have multiple films. Back to Veibai. Snuffy portrays as an antagonist in Veibai's lore. She apparently places a curse on Veibai that enables her to remember anything. She keeps on having the same nightmare that she says, the same dream over and over. She's like seeing and hearing these things. But that's pretty much all we get out of that. We don't see much. If this was made into a movie, I'm sure we'd see a lot more out of Snuffy and Silverveil and how they play a role in this. Silverveil, we understand, helps Veibai restore her memory, but Snuffy, I'm not too sure at what her goal is within Veibai's lore. There's actually a third person that you see in Veibai's lore, and another person you see in Nanners Eternal Void, and that's Haruka. She was recently added into VShojo. At first she was not, but she was added into VShojo, and you do see her in both Nanners, the Eternal Void, and Veibai, the Sky Empress. However, you only see her for literally a second. She is not heavily involved in their story. In the Sky Empress, Haruka kind of witnesses the stealing away of Nanners. The reason why Haruka does get her own film at somewhere on this timeline is because in that film you will see why she plays a role in both Veibai and Nanners' story. In her lore, you kind of see why. I'm gonna watch her lore video again so that I understand everything. But in that video, you understand why she's involved with those two. So, but moving on. So, Veibai the Sky Empress, I'm putting it as the second film because I feel like her story diverts not entirely diverts, but it so in a way diverts away from Nanner's story, or away from Iron Mouse's story rather. It diverts a little bit from Iron Mouse's story, but it is related to Nanner's story. Nanner's being sealed away. That part of it is why I'm saying that Bebe will be the second one on my timeline. Now, the third movie. Now I will put Iron Mouse Heaven and Hell up here. Iron Mouse Heaven and Hell, I will say, is the third film. Because this is when you almost don't even see other people in here. You do see Nanners. But somebody else who is heavily involved is who she calls Booby. Now, Booby is actually Sea Dog Connor, voiced by Connor, or Sea Dog. So, Sea Dog is not a VTuber. However, the character Booby is voiced by him. So, you're not gonna see Booby on like a regular basis or anything, but he's a main character in Iron Mouse's story. In Iron Mouse's Heaven and Hell story, you see how she starts out as an angel in heaven, but you don't see how she ends up sealed away in a box. But that's how Booby finds her. Booby is actually the protagonist in the Heaven and Hell story. He's the protagonist. He's the first voice you hear. So you can argue that he and Iron Mouse are both the protagonists. But Booby is the first one you see and hear. He finds Iron Mouse sealed away in this box, and upon freeing her, she takes his powers. So, and she ultimately becomes the queen of the underworld, the queen of hell. She steals Booby's powers, and she steals his role as ruler of the underworld. This did not last long. Ultimately, Iron Mouse decides to leave Hell, because she decides that it's not the world for her. Thus, Booby gets his powers back and all that, but he's not too happy about it. So, but yeah, that's how the Heaven and Hell story goes, and of course, again, she runs into Iron Mouse. Once she leaves Hell, that's when she finds Nanners. I think that in the Nanners Eternal Void, when Iron Mouse finds Nanners and tells her and gives her a warning about the world that she's trying to take over, I think that the events of this film start right about after Iron Mouse leaves from Hell. Because she's not with Booby at the time. If I'm taking about to say something, it's because I'm really trying to think this through. Now, so that's why I'm gonna have this as the third film. Now, the fourth film. Let me just look and look and look and try to figure this out. The fourth film I'm going to put in here will be Haruka the Seed of Life. Haruka Karabu the Seed of Life is going to be the fourth film that I put in here. Because that way you get the context as to why she is involved with Nanners and Bebe's lore stories. You know, I figured the sooner you get it, the better. Oops, I clicked a button. So yeah, the sooner you get the context as to how Haruka is involved in Nana's and Beibei's story, the better. So I think that she should be the fourth film in my timeline. She's very closely related to their story, so I'm not gonna put her too far below in the timeline. So the fifth film, there's not 10 films, I don't think. I think there's gonna... Actually, yeah, there's gonna be 11 films. It looks like there's gonna be 11. So I'll go ahead and add one more. Since there's 11 lore videos, it might be 11 films. So we'll add one more. Film number 5. You know what? There's not going to be 11. There is going to be 10, because I'm going to not include one of these videos. The fifth film is when I think it is safe to divert a little bit from these four. I think the fifth film is when I can start to add a little bit of filler in there. Because again, when I look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline order, when I think about everybody who is involved in the plotline, I think that Guardians of the Galaxy is when it starts to become filler. And by filler, I mean just throwing a new story in to sort of take your attention away just for a moment of where the plot was originally. Ant-Man, I don't think is a filler either, because Ant-Man, I don't believe is going to be the filler in this, and actually because it comes out after Guardians of the Galaxy anyway, so it can't be. Guardians of the Galaxy, when you look in timeline order, that's where I think it's filler, because this story has nothing to do with Captain America, Iron Man, who were and Thor, who were the original Avengers in terms of the plot. Guardians of the Galaxy is the filler. Doesn't become a part of this plot until much later. Spot number 5 is where I'm gonna go ahead and put what I believe is a filler. And that is... Let me shrink myself a little bit. I think I'm a little too big. And that is going to be Project Melody Ode to a Cyber Apocalypse. This music is so nostalgic. Again. I forgot this was my favorite track from the Super Monkey Ball Deluxe soundtrack. It's so fire. I don't know how to spell apocalypse, apparently. Project Melody Ode to a Cyber Apocalypse, I believe, is filler. Project Melody's story has very little to do with Nyanners and Iron Mouse. However, Vei Bei does cameo in this story. Vebe does cameo in that video. Project Melody Racing Queen, I am taking out as a separate film. I'm going to just include that with the Ode to a Cyber Apocalypse film idea. Turn my headphones up. I really love this song. Yeah, because it was really short. It was a really short lore anyway, so Project Melody Ode to a Cyber Apocalypse. Now, in order for it to make sense that this is movie number 5, it only makes sense that movie number 6 has to be... What was the title? Zentrea Refactoring Time. If I'm gonna put Project Melody Ode to a Cyber Apocalypse at 5, Zentrea Refactoring Time has to be the next film. Because her story is actually... It starts out as a bit of a prequel to Project Melody's lore. It starts off as a bit of a... Starts off as a little bit of a prequel. Well, or maybe not. No, because Malware is introduced in Project Melody's story. So no, it's not a backstory. This is actually it's in between, really. Zentrea's story is actually in between the Ode to a Cyber Apocalypse. It's like part of Ode to an Apocalypse comes before it, and then part of it is in between. Because Malware is involved in the Refactoring Time story. In Zentrea's lore, she was sent to the future to kill Malware. To stop. She was either sent to the future or the past to prevent Melody from becoming Malware. She was tasked of killing her, but then she sees like that Project Melody is not the same person at all as Malware. Malware is a complete glitch. She's a completely different entity that lives inside of the mind of Melody as a corruption. It's like a virus living inside of Melody. So she struggles with the idea of trying to kill her because it's like this is not Malware. Melody and Malware are not the same person. So it's hard to figure out which movies to put where because Malware is the antagonist in both of these stories. The Ode to a Cyber Apocalypse and Refactoring Time. Malware is the antagonist in both of these. I'm not sure why Vebe is related to this story because her lore makes it seem as though it has nothing to do with Melody. So that was a little bit confusing, but let's move on. Now we can get back to the original plot, and this is what I'm going to put Iron Mouse Heaven and Hell. As the 7th film. Now the problem with doing this, the people that cameoed in this story make it very difficult for this movie to be put at number 7. Or that they just make it difficult for the plot in general. Because again, you see Nanners in this. You see Haruka in this, which is confusing. You see Nazuna in this, which makes sense, because Nazuna is also an angel, so putting her in heaven with Iron Mouse makes sense. Haruka being in heaven with them did not make sense. Now, I don't know if she was just voicing an angel who was in there, or if she herself was actually in there, but that's what I think it actually was. There were other male characters in this who I don't think are actual VTubers. I think they were just portraying characters who were in heaven. Yeah, they were just in They were just portraying characters. So, yes, but yeah, Haruka and Nazuna were both in this. And Nazuna what makes sense. Haruka is what confuses it. Her being in heaven with Iron Mouse. Now, there is no lore video for Nazuna, but I think it would be nice if, or well, maybe since she appears in heaven with Iron Mouse, I guess maybe she doesn't get to have her own movie. But if this is going to be a film, I would definitely involve her more, just because it would please the audience. Other people who show up in this, obviously again, Booby. Someone that cameoed in this lore that also made it a little bit confusing. Calliope Mori cameoed in this. She cameoed a number of times in the entire 5-year anniversary stream of Iron Mouse, because in one of Iron Mouse's background overlays, settings, what are they called? What and I'll say overlay for now. Yeah, one of the overlays, Callie's scythe is in the background. As a joke, she says, like, she left her scythe here. And again, Calliope Mori doesn't have her own lore video. But this makes it very confusing, because now it's as if her story should interlap with Iron Mouse in some way. But anyway, this movie will be at number 7, because you get the backstory as to how she ends up sealed in a box for an eternity, and then again you start to see things similar to what happened in Heaven and Hell. But yeah, let's see. Let's go to number 8 now. Yeah, if these were all to be made in movies, they would have to really make some changes. That's what I'm really thinking. If they're gonna make these into movies, they would have to seriously make some changes to the plot of the lore videos. Like, they would have to make some changes, because otherwise a lot of things are very confusing. The film that will be put at number 8 is gonna be Fruit the Overworld. That's gonna be at number 8. When I watched her film, when I watched her lore video, Iron Mouse is a cameo in this, because she mentions the fact that Iron Mouse, or well, she doesn't herself, like her servants, her little skeleton servants, mentioned that Iron Mouse left Hell. So that immediately lets you know that this lore story takes place after the events of Iron Mouse leaving Hell, specifically. Just that part. So that's why this film should be a good idea to come next. Because that way you get a little bit of context of how Fruit is involved in everything. But now I'm thinking, like, actually, should the Fruit the Overworld film be after Heaven and Hell, or should it be after Heavenfall? I put Heaven and Hell twice by mistake. This is actually Heavenfall, not Heaven and Hell. That was an abrupt end to the song. Anyway, should Fruit the Overworld actually come after Heaven and Hell simply because there's way more context from Iron Mouse leaving Hell than there is in Heavenfall? I feel like Heavenfall should be one of the very dead last films. This is another game that had a tremendous soundtrack. Super Mario Odyssey. Yeah, I'm actually gonna put Fruit the Overworld as the 4th film in the timeline after Iron Mouse Heaven and Hell, because it would make more sense that way. There's way more context involved with Iron Mouse leaving Hell than there is in Heavenfall. There was too much that happened in Heavenfall for that to be before, like, for that story to take place before anything else, almost anything else. Now, the remaining 2 films, the 9th film on this list, without question, is going to be Nyanner's Reckoning. And so I'm gonna put Nyanner's 2, Reckoning. Or The Reckoning. I'll call it The Reckoning. Spelled it wrong. And Nyanner's 2, The Reckoning, will come after Iron Mouse 2, Heavenfall. And the movie that's coming last is Keisan New Beginnings. And that's the movie that I'm putting last. Keisan New Beginnings is going dead last because her story absolutely has nothing to do with anybody else on my timeline. Her story is completely unique. It's very unique. So, her movie is going to go dead last. Nyanner's 2, The Reckoning, has to be at the dead end of this because this is Nyanner's succeeding in lighting the beacon. And you see her true form and everything beginning to unfold. So, I'm going to go back into that video and watch some of it again. I'm going to pause my music and mute so that you guys don't hear the video as I'm watching it. I like that I haven't even started talking about any of the other companies yet, but I've already been streaming for over an hour. Iron Mouse and Aethel are involved. Lord Aethelston, they're both involved in this story. Aethel obviously is not going to have his own film in this timeline either. As of now, because he has no lore video that... Well, I haven't seen a lore video of him that relates at all to this story. Still watching, guys. That's why I'm so quiet. Okay, so based on just those I skimmed through some of it. Just based on that, it looks as if, like I said, this has definitely got to be come after the events of Heavenfall, because this is, well, also long after the events of her having met Mouse and started being a streamer and everything like that, and then all of a sudden, as you watch it, you see that her power grows significantly weaker by the year. Year by year, she's growing significantly weaker, and she ultimately decides that to just drop everything and it's time to light the beacon and take over the world. Time to fulfill what was always my destiny, because everything that I've been doing now for the last decade or so has been a complete distraction. So yeah, that's why I'm definitely putting this down at number 9, as to pretty much cap off the timeline from 1 to 9 at least. And then, like I said, Keisan New Beginnings is pretty much a new beginning altogether for the timeline. Like this is the Shang-Chi of the V Shoujo timeline, because Shang-Chi kind of started a new generation with the Marvel films, and that's like Keisan is like, the story of Keisan is so far off of all the other stories that it just makes you think that it's like it's its own movie. Like, it's not heavily involved in the plot of the rest of these. So that's why hers is going to be at number 10, and Nyena's To the Reckoning, that's definitely going to stay at number 9. So that's the V Shoujo timeline then. So again, we have Nyena's The Eternal Void, just kick off the timeline. Veibe the Sky Empress. Iron Mouse Heaven and Hell. Fruit the Overworld. Haruka Karu Be the Seed of Life. And then we get a couple of fillers. Project Melody, Ode to a Cyber Apocalypse. And then Centrea Refactoring Time. That kind of proceeds. Like, Project Melody and Centrea, they kind of two movie filler series before it jumps back to the original plot of the timeline with Iron Mouse 2 Heavenfall, and then followed by Nyena's 2 The Reckoning. So it starts with Nyena's and it ends with Nyena's. So that's it for the V Shoujo one then. I think it's time to move on to Niji Sanji now. But again, Niji Sanji is gonna be a problem trying to figure this out, because is there even really a way to do this? The way Niji Sanji is set up, every time they have a debut, it's for a group of people, and the group of people are all connected and to each other only. They're not connected to anybody. Most of them are not connected to anybody else. There are some that are, which is why this is going to be very difficult to figure this out. Niji Sanji has a lot of people just in the English branch alone. A lot of people. So let's go ahead. Let's see how much I struggle with this. Now, in order to create this timeline, I have the YouTube video pulled up. I already started watching. I watched most of it already. There's a VTuber named Ray Lice who makes lore videos all the time. Well, makes lore video analysis videos, lore analysis videos all the time. He's the Super Horror Bros of VTubers. You know how if you follow Super Horror Bros on YouTube, Super Horror Bros is a horror game analysis channel. Ray Lice is a VTuber lore analysis channel. So I have his video up where he explains the lore of all members of Nijisanji English. So, based on the video and based on, if you go on Nijisanji's website, you go on where it says talents, and you click on Nijisanji English, and then you set the filter to organize them in... I'm gonna unplug my computer. You set the filter to organize them in order of debut. So again, Nijisanji, talents, Nijisanji English, in order of debut, in ascending order of debut. If you do that, then you will see the correct order in terms of this guy's video. Again, like I said, Nijisanji, just like Hollow Live, everybody is split up into groups. Let me go into the Nijisanji page already. Everybody is set up in groups. It's split up into groups. Whenever there's a debut, it's a group of people. And based on both the video and the website, it looks like the very first Nijisanji English group is Lazulite. And the very first person to debut was Alira Pandora. So, however, I can't make, for everybody in this group, I can't make a film on one person. Or if I make a film and name it after one person, it would have to involve others. It can't just be them by themselves, because that definitely wouldn't work out for Nijisanji. So, Alira Pandora, it was the first one to debut from the Lazulite group. And according to the site and the lore explanation video, she's a sky dragon. It says she's a sky dragon who came from the heavens closest to the sun. She's lived for thousands of years, apparently. And there's something else that Ray Lice said in his video. He said that Alira is the half sister to Selen Tatsuki, who is not in Lazulite, which again makes this confusing already. That is why I'm trying to figure out what, if I'm going to make a movie about Alira Pandora, how is it going to involve the other members of Lazulite? Because, quite frankly, they have zero to do with her. They're all completely different. They didn't group all of them because their stories interlap. They just grouped them together because that's how they did it. The second person to debut in Nijisanji's Lazulite group is Finana Ryugu, who is a mermaid. And Ray Lice says that she is a descendant of a sea dragon, like a sea dragon god kind of thing. Which, again, doesn't really mean that she has anything to do with Alira. So, and then the third person and final person to debut in Lazulite is Pomu Rainpuff, who is a fairy. if I'm going to make a movie that introduces Nijisanji English, like what would be like, how would it start? Because I feel like in order for me to figure this out, I have to look through literally all the groups and figure out the only, so far off the top of my head, the only group in Nichisanji English where everybody is actually connected is their most recent group, Exile. That's the only group where literally everyone is connected. Luxium has two people that are definitely connected. So, but Lazulite, none of them have anything to do with each other. So if I'm going to make a movie about Lazulite, I can't. Because all three of them are different. All three of them would have to have their own separate film. So I'll delete that. I'm not going to include that. So, Alira Pandora, number 1. Finale Ryugu, number 2. And Palmaripa, number 3. These three are going to have their own separate film because they're not related to each other at all. So that's when there would be a fourth film where there would have to be a plot made up. I believe this is how you spell their group name. Let me just make sure. Yeah. We'll just write Lazulite collab film for now. Because they would have to make up a plot in which the events of the movie bring all three of them together to deal with the same antagonist. Because there's no way you can make a movie right off the bat and lumping them all together. But now let's move on to the next group, which according to this list would be Obsidia. And Obsidia would be Petra Gurin, Rosemi Lovelock, and Selen Tatsuki. So right off the bat, since Obsidia is the next group, I already know what film is going to come first. Even though Petra debuted before everybody else, Selen is who I'm going to put on my timeline as the 5th film in the Nijisanji timeline. I'm gonna call her movie Selen Tatsuki the Half Sister. Because, again, in Raylice's video, he says that Alira Pandora and Selen Tatsuki are half sisters. But he does not go deep into that. That is why I believe in this film, In this film, Alira would have to make a cameo in this film because you have to build on that concept. You know, you can't say, well, they're half sisters and then just jump off of that concept. So the Selen Tatsuki film would help us dive into how they're related. And Selen does have a lore video. But oops. Selen does have a lore video, but I doubt that it's going to give me much context because it's a very short video. It's muted, right? I'm muted, right? Yeah, it's muted. Put my music back on. Okay. Well, I was dead wrong. There was plenty of context in that lore video. Fantastic. Yeah, so if Selen has a movie, it's actually going to involve all of Obsidia. Her lore video actually includes the other two members of Obsidia. Now, I'm confused about how they could have been involved in the dragon racing thing. Selen's story kind of has a How to Train Your Dragon vibe to it. With the dragon racing. But, anyway, that was only part of it. But, I was wrong. Alira was actually very heavily involved in that lore. So, that's very good. I'm glad that they included her. So, because that's what would have to happen if you made a movie with them. So now I have to decide if Rosemi and Petra still would have their own film, and based on what Ray Lights described about their lore, I think they definitely both should. Petra's film, I'm gonna put Petra's film next. But her film is, without question, a prequel, because her story, it wouldn't make sense for her to show up in Selen's film, and then you get this, and then you just get this, and you expect people to believe that this is not a prequel. This, her story would definitely have to be a prequel if we gave her one. So, and then Rosemi would also have to be a prequel. So these two would be prequel films, Petra and Rosemi. Alright, so we got 7 films so far. Give that video a thumbs up, because that was very well done. There wouldn't be a need for an Obsidia collab film because, I mean, that would have to be... You know what? Actually, Solen's film is going to have to go after these two. So, rather than just throwing 2 prequels in there... Oops. Rather than just saying they're 2 prequels, Petra and Rosemi's story, it actually would make sense for their story to come before Solen, because Solen's gonna involve the other 2, Rosemi and Petra, and it's also going to involve Alira. So yes, this order actually is correct. So it is going to be still in debut order, because it was Petra, then Rosemi, then Solen. So the timeline is still going to be in debut order. This is very well done. I'm glad that they made it make sense. This makes more sense. This really makes more sense now that I'm doing it this way. Alright, the next group is Etheria, which is going to involve now 4 ladies. Anna Alouette, Millie Parfait, Anita Kosaka, and Reimu Endo. So, based on Raylice's video, Anna and Millie, their stories intertwine. So, I'm trying to think who would deserve to have a story made about them and include the other person. Is it gonna be Anna's movie that involves Millie, or is it gonna be Millie's movie that involves Anna? I'm gonna have to find out. Hold on, I gotta mute my music again. Okay, hang on. Okay. okay? So, after watching some more of his video, the first movie in this series is actually going to be... It's actually going to be Reimu's movie. I think that's how you spell her name, am I correct? Reimu was the last one to debut out of the members, but her movie's going to go first. She's the first person that Raylice talked about, and after explaining the lore behind her, that makes perfect sense. So, I think it's actually going to go in reverse order. I think it's going to be Reimu's movie first, then Nina's movie. Let me see what he says about. Let me see what he says about Nina. Let me see what he says about Nina. Yeah, Nina's movie is gonna go next, so it's gonna go in inverse order. So Reimu Endo and then Nina Osaka, her movie goes next. I believe that's how you spell her name, right? Now, as for the 10th movie, deciding between Millie or Enna, which one gets the movie, I am gonna go with Enna and Millie being involved in the movie about Enna. Now, in the movie for Enna, I believe that is how you spell her name. As I said, Millie will have to make an appearance as a titular character in the Anna Alouette film. And in that film, you could learn about Millie's backstory. Because these two are, like, that's what I said, in this group, these two, their stories are intertwined, kind of. So... But I think it makes more sense. There's more lore involved with Enna's story than in Millie's, so I think it would be better if it was Enna's story featuring Millie. Alright, so let's move on. Been streaming for almost 2 hours. Wow. Okay, Luxium. Luxium, like I said, there are two people whose stories interlap with each other as well. But other than that, everybody else's story is kind of unique. It wouldn't really matter the order that you decided to go in. So what I'm gonna do is have Ike's first. And Ike first, then Vox second. to shrink the font on this. Not sure how well you guys can see this now, but I may have to make a second page. Yeah, so Ike first, then Vox. And then after Vox, I think it is going to... Oh, yeah, Shu... No, you know what? I'm not gonna give one to Shu because his lore story was kind of silly, in my opinion. So the next one is going to go to Luca. And his movie is going to involve Mista, because... Did I spell that right? Yeah. Because they said, Ray said in, Luke's, lore that he was pursued by Mista, who suspected him of being a thief. So that's how those two are connected. So, Luca's movie is going to involve Mista. Alright, moving on. Alright, sorry. We still have 3 more groups to get into. I love Mario's music so much. This is... Super Mario Galaxy had such a great soundtrack. I think I'm gonna do a new page now, just so, because I don't know how much more I can fit on this page, so I'll bring the font back up for this. And duplicate it so that we can begin anew. The next group is Noctix. And... Oh crap, you know what? That's where I left off on his video. I left off after Luxium. I haven't even watched any of the lore for the other groups yet. So, hang on. Um, so it looks like everybody in Noctix has a very unique story. It wouldn't really matter the order that you put their movies in. It's just that unfortunately, Yugo is no longer with the company, so I could still put it, like, include him. It's just that I don't want people to think that I'm, like, slow. I'm aware that he's no longer with the company. I'm gonna put Yugo's movie first, only because in his movie, Ike would make an appearance. Ike from Luxium would make an appearance, and Luxium was the group that preceded this one, so... But yeah, everybody else that follows him, it wouldn't matter what order you put that in. Albin, Sunny, and Uki. Yeah, so for them it wouldn't matter what order you put them in, except I would put Yugo first, and then follow it up with everybody else. Alright, so now I'm gonna figure out what to do about Luna. Which has 6 people in it, I believe. Yeah. Luna and XLA have 6 people in it, so that's 6 movies I gotta come up with. Possibly 6 for each one. Let's see. again, sorry for being quiet. That's just me looking at the lore videos. So scratch the idea of making 6 separate films. Scratch that idea. Where am I going? Because I think that both Luna and Exile have a similar concept in that all of their members are a part of this institute. They were like everybody in Nichisanji was teleported to the Nichisanji headquarters apparently, but both Luna and Exile, their members are a part of it. Like they were recruited as a part of an institute where their character serves. Like they have a specific role in the institute and everything. So actually, we're just gonna make the last 2 movies for Nichisanji. One for Luna, I'll call it the Luna Institute. Oops. Yeah, we'll call it the Luna Institute. That'll be about all the members of Luna. And for Exile, I want to make a special. I want to think of a nice topic for them because I don't want to just say Exile because that's corny. I want to think of a different title. So far, though, it seems like that may have to be the title. I can't really think of anything else. I'm surprised this has been a 2-hour stream. I can't really think of anything else. It's just that, if Exile is to be a movie, in my opinion, the protagonist of the movie should be Zion. Because in the lore videos of the other girls, she was the first one that you saw. She was the first. It looks like she was the first girl recruited into the Exile Institute. Then the other girls were discovered after that. And the way Zion's lore story was set up, it seems like she should be the main character. And then she recruits the others and you find out about their story. So, alright, so that's Nichisanji though. That's their timeline, a very thick timeline. Hololive English is gonna take way less time to come up with a timeline for. There's way less people to worry about. There's way less people to worry about, and it seems like Again, I'm gonna go in a different order from debut order. It's not like the movies are not gonna be based on debut order. Let me just mute again for a second and see. I know right off the bat if like you have to start with Myth because they debut before Council, and right off the bat, Gura's movie has to be first. Just the way her story is set up, it makes sense that hers is first because it's not a very chaotic story about how she got into the streaming aspect of things. Cowley's story is much more intense, and so I think hers might go last. But let me just watch some videos and see if I get any other idea. I'm actually learning some interesting things. learning some interesting things. So, after watching the video from Relights again, yeah, Gura's film is gonna go first. The second film, and this is not because any of their stories actually intertwine, because they don't interlap at all. But the next one I'm gonna go with is Amelia Watson, if I could spell her name right. No, sorry. This seems like a nice title for her, Amelia Watson, time-traveling detective. The third movie is going to be for Ina. We'll just leave her first name. I'm not gonna put the last name. Oh, I don't know why I put the dash there. Again, these three, they're the first three I'm going with because their stories don't interlap at all. And the last two, in a way, do. So, as I try to look for a song that I want to play. Now, the last movie, the second to last one, will be for Calliope Mori, and the last one will be for Kiara. Because these two kind of overlap. Not really, but kind of. Based on Realize's video, he says that something about her, Kiara doing something in order to get closer to Callie. Let me go back and figure out what he said. So, he said that she mastered an ability that lets her stay within the same dimension as Callie. Some kind of revival ability that lets her stay within the same dimension as Callie. Okay. Well, that's the only way that they really interlap. But yeah, that'll be for Myth, and then for Council. For Council, let me see. I think Sana was the one who debuted first, and I think that it does make sense for her movie to go... Oh, I spelled her name wrong. I think it does make sense for her movie to go first, since she debuted first, and none of the stories are really connected, but they're all eventually going to be brought together. I think Sana would be a good way to kick off Council, and then Mume would be second, because there's just something about Mume, Guardian of Civilization, Council Guardian of Civilization. It just feels like if she was to be given a film, it would make sense for her to be one of the earlier films. After her, you could bounce between Crony or Fauna. I guess we'll say Fauna next. And then Crony. Because Bay has to go last. If I can spell her name right. If I can figure out a song I want to play. Yeah, Bale's story has to go last. The Guardian of Chaos, it feels like it feels better if her story is last. Seems like her story would make sense to go last. But, like I said, they're all ultimately going to come together in the end anyway, so I think we'll do Council collab film. And what I'm gonna do for the Myth collab film is giving a little praise to a person who made a video called Myth's Bad Ending. It blew up, and congratulations to that person because it was so nicely done. And people from Hololive did notice it. They did watch it. It was so well done, and I think it deserves some love on the timeline. Like, maybe something happens to Ina that causes her to freak out and start attacking everybody else. So we'll say Myth's Bad Ending would be the Myth collab film at the end of the timeline, the dead end of the timeline. And what a crazy way to end off a timeline too. Alright, well I think I'm happy with my timelines now. This has been a 2.5 hour stream just talking about the timeline. My goodness. And I'm feeling pretty happy about it. I think I got a nice idea going for some VTuber films that should be made in the future. The Nanos 2 The Reckoning, I feel like this shouldn't be the end though. Like, this is just because there isn't any other videos yet. Any other lore videos yet. So Keisan New Beginnings completely diverts from how this ends. But I hope that there is some kind of continuation from The Reckoning lore video. And I hope that we get something from Snuffy as well. Snuffy, Silverveil, or Vey, or whatever else. Just more context on Snuffy because she appears as an antagonist in Vey's story and we don't really get much else from her. As for Niji Sanji, yeah, this definitely makes sense. I don't really have a comment about this. Just that Luna and XLA have to have a group film. They can't have separate films. And then Hololive has to end at the Myth's Bad Ending. And then possibly, if you looked at Fauna's, well, those English like the Halloween based videos that Fauna wrote, the stories that Fauna wrote, I guess that could be the way that Council and Myth kind of intertwine, and there could be a movie created based on that, but we would have to see how Myth survives this first. But yeah, that's it. That is definitely gonna be it. I'm happy with everything. Thank you all for staying tuned. I know this was definitely a lot to take in. It was definitely a lot for me too. It was a very long stream. My goodness. But thank God it was long. I'm glad it was a long stream. Got to learn a lot about these VTubers and make sense of everything. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll be back to gaming in my next stream, back to Xenoblade, and then back to Splatoon probably after that. So I'll see you guys then. Have a great day.